What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in to the inaugural 2025 original call to post here on the network. We break down everything North American thoroughbred horse racing has to offer. And of course, with me, as always, is my friend and co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Well, how did this happen? Here we are just weeks away from, not even weeks, just like a week away from the Oaks, a week away from the Derby. And my goodness, where has this first 4 months of the year gone?
Yes, it's always a little tough, with the sporting schedule. But I will say the horse racing kind of understands it as well. The first big race that I think catches everyone's attention is obviously the Derby, and as Raider Jim alluded to, I think about 10 days away as we are recording on the 24th of April, a Thursday. So, what, 8 days away from that big race, 9 days, 8 from the Oaks, 9 from the Derby. But yeah, it's already started off. Horse racing kind of gets rolling, January. But a lot of the heavy hitters don't really get rolling until about this time and maybe even later into the summer. But just wanted to kind of start by, getting a bit of the lay of the land, at least some of the big stories, because of course, the way we go about things here on the original Call to Post, especially in the beginning, first thoughts, and we're going to be going weekly, and it's mainly going to be the Triple Crown. And obviously, there are going to be other races, but the Triple Crown is going to be our main. And then once the Triple Crown wraps up, we of course then dive into the Breeders' Cup qualifying races, which of course leads us to essentially our this show's Super Bowl, which is the Breeders' Cup, which will of course be held about 10, 15, 20 miles from either myself or Raider Jim in that beautiful trackside oval known as Del Mar. But yeah, that's just kind of the way it goes. And the first episode here of the season is kind of a nice little it's not going to be terribly long, and kind of one you can look back on. But as I kind of thought about it, it's we're walking into the pool. We're not diving into the deep end yet. There's a grade 3 out there, but no real breakdowns of any races. That will be for next week. And obviously we'll have more than just the Oaks and the Derby, as those cards are going to be very good on Derby Day. It's not just the Derby. So, but with that being said, time to kind of set the stage for where we are so far this season. I just kind of threw a couple things down that just, some of the main stories early on. Obviously, the richest race in the world is not the Derby, it's not the Classic, it's actually the Saudi Cup, which, if you really know anything about world economics, you understand why that is the richest race in the world. And Japan's Forever Young. What a start to their season. They get the win as an 8-5 favorite. Now Forever Young did pick up a second win already. I didn't jot down that one, but I think it was a grade 2. So Forever Young already off to a very, very good start. And if everything goes as planned, I'm sure those connections will want to see Forever Young run in the Classic here at Del Mar. And then after the first big race of the year on the calendar is the Pegasus out at Gulfstream Park. And that was White Abarrio, Safi Joseph's horse, after a really, really subpar 2024. White Abarrio is already 2 for 2 this year. And actually, that reminds me. So no, Forever Young has not won a second race yet. It was White Abarrio who's already 2 for 2 this year. Yeah, I think that was a grade 2 or a grade 3, but this was a big, big win for White Abarrio in for a year. Last year, White Abarrio had a great 2023, and then 2024 really left a lot to be desired. And then finally, Torpedo Anna's dominance continues. Not only is she on track to run in the Breeders' Cup overall, but it looks like possibly running in the Classic, not the Distaff, where she dominated last year. Of course, Torpedo Anna, a filly, but looks like she will be on track there. Raider Jim, any thoughts there or any other kind of stories, you've seen here in the first 4 months of the calendar year here for thoroughbred horse racing?
Yeah, White Abarrio certainly is was kind of a question mark going into 2025, as you alluded to. Back wrapping up 2023, won the Breeders' Cup Classic, and then early 24 ran in the Saudi Cup, finished way back. I think finished 10th. Then the second race out, it ran in the Grade 1 Hill and Dale Metro Handicap at Saratoga, came in 5th. So then they decided to take the foot off the gas a little bit, put him into an optional allowance, got into the winner's circle, then finished in that Grade 3 you made reference to, got a place in the, I think it's the Prospector Stakes. And then from there, seemed to get back into form. And now this year won the Pegasus, also won the Grade 3 Ghost Zapper Stakes. And with that, gee, what a disappointment. That horse has only banked 1.7 million this year, and in its career has already checked in $6.9 million. So White Abarrio, I wish I had a horse that was a disappointment like that.
Amen. Yeah, it's like when they talk about like, oh, a superstar baseball player, basketball player, like a Mike Trout. Oh, well, he only hit 290 with 30, and every other Major League Baseball player is like, man, I would love to struggle like that. And very similar for me, I would say, Torpedo Anna, going back to last year, the dominance that she had, I've always felt like the filly, and then of course the Breeders' Cup Distaff division was always very wide open. You had 4 or 5 really, really good horses, and then some others that you wouldn't be surprised if they found themselves in the winner's circle in that distaff. And Torpedo Anna has kind of come through and blown that up. She was so good last year. I believe she won Horse of the Year, not Filly
Right.
of the Year, even though she probably did win Filly of the Year, but Horse of the Year. And I'm sure there have been ones since Zenyatta, or fillies that since Zenyatta that have won Horse of the Year. But for me, Torpedo Anna's dominance last year, for me, I celebrated it, but I didn't expect to see it again. I think from now, I've just been trained to see a horse have a dominant year and in a fantastic way at the Breeders' Cup. And on Monday, we hear it's going to Keeneland auction, it's going out to stud. And which, hey, look, that's the finances, the way it goes. But Kenny McPeak and company, they said no, Torpedo Anna, she's coming back this year. And everything that's kind of being talked about, if everything continues to go the way they expect it to, if she gets an invite to the Classic, she's going to run in the Classic. And I would be very, very not only impressed to see her run in that, because I don't really think that the Classic is so, we just know who it's going to be, even with White Abarrio's start to the year. I would say right now, I mean, we're still 6 months away from the Classic. I mean, Torpedo Anna's got to be at the top 3 in terms of that tote board. I'm very, very excited to see how her summer progresses. Obviously, hope everything goes well. And we do get to see her in the Breeders' Cup, whether it is the Distaff or the Classic. Of course, as I kind of mentioned, I prefer the Classic. Now, there was one other story when I was looking over things, and this isn't a good story, because one thing that I did want to really highlight last year was the relative safety of the sport overall. Now, again, it's not going to be zeros. It's very unfortunate, but we're not going to see zeros in the fatality columns and things like that. But if you look at 2023, I felt like every time we started this podcast, before we dove into anything, we had to make reference to something that happened the weekends before. And it was, honestly, it was a little tough for every single, just seeing it, and then knowing, okay, we're going to have to talk about it on Thursday just because, we have to. Last year, I don't think we talked about it. And again, it's mainly because some of the bigger tracks had really, really good records, and even the smaller tracks. Again, I looked and the numbers were way down. But one thing I did see, and this is this year, still looking pretty good. Didn't see any crazy stuff except for this one. and it is coming out of Elko Fairgrounds, which is in Nevada, which I didn't even know. I don't even know if that is what type of meat that is or anything like that. I don't know if it's harness, quarters, I'm not sure. But a really, really disgusting story coming out of there. Apparently one of the horses was given cocaine, and not like a horse equivalent. I'm talking the Colombian stuff. And the punishment is obviously the trainer's been stripped of his license, which obviously, but the fine is $5,000, which I now the article did say that there could be more punishments coming down, but I mean, if the baseline for I hate to kind of even smile at this, but it's a ridiculous story. It seems like a Saturday Night Live skit or something that animal rights activists would, blow up out of proportion, because I have seen it sometimes to where we go back to I believe it was Jason Service, that whole fiasco and the drugs he was giving to the horses were considered similar to cocaine for horses, but we're not talking about like the actual product. It's just disgusting. And even more so if there is no harsher penalty. And I don't even want the harsher penalty to be like, and to make sure no one else does it, because again, I have a lot of faith in a lot of these horse people, and even some of the worst I don't think would be that bad.
That guy should go down.
He needs to be in jail. Like that's like giving cocaine to a child. I mean, the horse doesn't know any better, and then obviously the horse wants more. It's what happens. It's it's very, very frustrating to see that. And again, the article did make reference to the fact that more punishment could be coming and should. But yeah, that was the one thing that I did. But again, I think overall we're only 4 months in. We don't really, or thankfully, have those numbers that we did see in 2023, and hopefully we continue to go into the summer of that. But I don't know if you want to add any thoughts to that, Raider Jim.
No, just you were, I was thinking that myself today. Churchill had a real bad outing with the Derby, and even a couple weeks after that. I don't remember if it was last year or if it was 23. And thankfully, I've heard nothing out of Churchill Downs. Everything seems to be good. They've got things under control. So I just hope it keeps running safe over there. I know Santa Anita has had a real good season so far this year since they started back in December, and they're still running. But yeah, so let's just keep our fingers crossed that continues to be the rule and not the exception.
Amen. Yeah, and it's and I do think it was 2023, because I think that was the Derby and they only had 18 horses running.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just a really bad track, and but I do remember that 2023 year. It seemed like I vividly remember you watching a race that I didn't get to see, and you seeing it and saying how terrible it was. I believe that was the Safi Joseph horse, if I remember correctly. And then the next week, the roles were reversed for us. You weren't able to see the race. I did. I don't quite remember on the horse there, but it's really, really tough to see it. And of course, I think sometimes when people hear horse racing, we think that these animals are just vessels for our financial gain. But I think most people really do love these animals, and especially the ones that interact with them on a day-to-day basis. So hopefully we can keep that rolling. But bit of a segue into the Churchill side of things. Obviously, as I kind of mentioned, no breakdowns of any races this week. That will be for next week. But we do shift our attention early on to Churchill for the Oaks and the Derby. Maybe the biggest story outside of what's going to be going on in the track is the return of Bob Baffert. Of course, this has been almost 3 or 4 years now.
Correct.
Now, this is going back, and it's been so long. I believe this is still stemming from the I believe there was a handler or a groom who I don't know if it was lotion he had put on, and this was the story, he had put on his hand, and then he handled the horse. It got into its bloodstream. But anyways, I do want to make a very big kind of differentiation between what I just talked about in Nevada and what Bob Baffert did here. Definitely not nearly as serious. Now, 4 years out of Churchill, essentially, or 3 or 4 years, and we really haven't seen Bob Baffert horses at Churchill for the Derby and Oaks. There have been some moments where Baffert will train the horse January through mid-February to March, and then Mike McCarthy will pick him up for a week or two so that that horse can run in the Derby for the connections. But I will say, Maiden or Madon, I should say, they stuck with Bob Baffert. There were a couple horses last year that probably would have been the favorites, and they said, no, we're sticking with Bob Baffert. Well, we don't have to deal with that drama this year. Bob Baffert is back. And I do expect him to make a little bit of some noise in the Derby. Although, if you look at the contenders, his horse isn't all the way near the top, but at the very least, we don't have to worry about, oh, is so-and-so going to run? Did they get him to a new trainer in time? But Raider Jim, your thoughts? Bob Baffert eligible finally, again, to get back into the Derby and Oaks and Churchill overall.
You can't keep Bob Baffert away. He's a big name in the game. That would be like saying, well, Bob Kraft can't go to the Patriot games anymore because of something he may have done. It's just not going to happen, or Jerry Jones for that matter. Bob Baffert, he made some noise at the beginning when they suspended him from Churchill. He kind of backed off on that, and I got to hand it to the guy. He stayed to the course and just did his thing where he could have horses. And of course, that means there's a lot of West Coast appearances out here. He hangs out in this area quite a bit. And so, okay, it's said, it's done. And as long as there's not a repeat, I'm okay with it. He's going to be a subplot to the weekend of the Derby weekend. And that's too bad because, but they have to do what they have to do. The other person you're going to see, Saffie Joseph Jr. Now, he didn't get suspended from Churchill, I believe, but he did get suspended out of Aqueduct and some of the East Coast courses for the same type of violations. Yet he is going to be represented or representing people in the Oaks, and I don't know if he has a contender in the Derby or not. So the nature of this game, it's going to have to be a real egregious violation before you see anybody get any type of a lifetime ban. And somebody who brings the dollars and cents the way Bob Baffert does, like I say, it's just not going to happen.
I agree. My biggest problem, I would say, with it now, the punishment is what it is. Look, Churchill knows more about it than I do, and that's fine. I don't want to, read, samples and all that stuff. That's fine. My biggest problem was, I believe it was originally a 2-year ban, 1 or 2 year ban. There was a year behind it, or a timetable behind it. Okay, fine. And as you mentioned, Bob Baffert, blah, blah, blah. And then I think once he realized, okay, I don't really have a path to go, as you mentioned, I'll just stick here to the West Coast. And then I want to say, last February, it was okay. The suspension's going to be lifted. And they said, no, he's actually going to be now suspended indefinitely. And some of the rumblings were he didn't, quote unquote, kiss the ring that they wanted him to. Again, my biggest problem was, look, if you want to suspend him indefinitely and make him do certain things before he can do it, fine. That's your prerogative. That's the right you've been given by being Churchill. But to say, okay, you're suspended for 2 years, and then 2 years rolls around and then they go, actually, no, hey, hold on. You're suspended indefinitely without anything new. I don't like that. And then obviously you do throw in the caveat of, as a fan of horse racing, some of the best are going to be trained by Bob Baffert, and it's very similar to Mike Smith. Mike Smith isn't just going to hop on an optional claiming horse. You see Mike Smith aboard, it's big race, and it's a pretty darn good horse. Same thing with Bob Baffert. You're not going to see him in optional claimings. You're not going to see him in too many allowance races. He's only taking the big guns. And to kind of take someone like that out, when you've kind of said, okay, look, he's going to be gone for 2 years. And also, by the way, New York might have for 1 year, but I want to say Kentucky was the only place that suspended him for at least any substantial period of
Correct.
time. There might have been fines elsewhere. And obviously, this does kind of go back to what I want to say 2021. I forget the name of the horse. Of course, there was the big disqualification and all that after the fact. It was like 6 months later. I remember we did the call to post. It's like, oh, we have to change the Kentucky Derby winner, by the way. Sorry, folks. But it's good to have Bob Baffert back, just for the fact that these are the best 3-year-olds here, or at least the best 3-year-old North American horses right now. And that's what I'm really, really excited for. And to see everyone kind of back at it without the asterisk, because look, for the last 2 or 3 years, yeah, you won the Kentucky Derby, but that was sans Bob Baffert horses, and there does have to somewhat come a bit of a asterisk with that. But moving on to the Friday main event, of course, as we mentioned, talked a lot about the Derby, but the Kentucky Oaks also a big part of what we'll be focusing on next week as well. Obviously, the Oaks, and anytime you see Oaks at the end of a race, more than likely, 99.9% of the time, it is going to be including the fillies and mares. But we do have the fillies running here, obviously 3-year-olds only. And of course, we go back to, just a few years back. This is my first introduction to Torpedo Anna, was when she won the Kentucky Oaks. But just kind of going through the leaderboard. Unfortunately, they took the points down just because they're already done. I don't know if these horses are fully put in, but KentuckyDerby.com has 14 horses picked, and that's generally what we see for the Oaks. We'll go starting at the top. We got Quiet Side, Lacara, Good Cheer, 5G, Ballerina, D'Oro, Kenma, Early On, Take Charge, Milady, Simply Joking, Bless the Broken, Drexel Hill, and for a Philly guy like me, that I get that one right there. Fondly, Anna's Promise, and Quick Kick. Raider Jim, obviously very early thoughts. We don't really have any past performances or anything in front of us, but just some quick thoughts on the Oaks 8 days away.
Yeah, and again, most people who listen to this probably already know what the Kentucky Oaks is. Some of you who may not or don't pay that much attention to it, do not consider this the lesser of races next week or Derby week, because let me tell you, 1 1/8 mile, they're going for 1 1/4 or 1.5 million, 750,000 to the winner. And this is not the lesser of 2 races, because it was 2024 when, as my friend just said here, Torpedo Anna won the Oaks and became the horse of the year. That tells you the caliber of running you're going to see when you watch the Kentucky Oaks. The handful of horses that I'm looking at right now, just real quickly, I like Good Cheer. That's Brad Cox and Luis Saez. It's a Godolphin horse also. 6-0 since August of 2024, 2-0 in 2025. Last 3 races, it has won Grade 2 Goldenrod, Rachel Alexandria, and the Fairgrounds Oaks. This horse means business and doesn't intend to lose anytime soon. After that, I've got Quiet Side, which is John A. Ortiz is the trainer. Jose Ortiz is the jockey. Broke his her maiden back in August, and since then has been in the money on the entries. 2 trips to the winner's circle in the Honeybee Stakes, and then also placed in the Grade 1 Spinaway Stakes, which is really something because ran in a Grade 1 after breaking its maiden and was able to put in a performance like that. I thought that was just fantastic. And then Lacara is going to be a surpriser, I think. Lacara, Mark Cassie is the trainer. Dylan Davis is the jockey, and Dylan Davis doesn't have the ring to it for all of us like Flavian Pratt or Jose Ortiz or Irad Ortiz. Right now, Dylan Davis for 2025 is sitting as the 4th or 5th best jockey for the year. So he's having himself quite a year. Lakara 9 starts since May of last year, 6 times in the money, 2 wins, 2 places already in 2025, and an impressive win the last time out on the 7th of April, went wire to wire in the Grade 1 Ashland Stakes at Keeneland. Wire to wire. That horse went off at almost 10-1, had a fantastic race. And that's why, if you look overall, you say, it doesn't seem to be the caliber to keep up with Quiet Side or maybe even, Good Cheer. But don't be surprised if the car is going to make a race of it. And of course, you have to talk about Tenma, Bob Baffert's horse, with Juan Hernandez in the saddle. Also, just, side note, kind of one of those interesting things. This is a horse out of the Bobby Flay Thoroughbreds. So Bobby Flay's stable has got an entry in this one. You just got to call her the West Coast darling. She's got 6 starts, all of them in the money. She's had, let's see, what do I have here? Grade 2, came in first. In a Grade 3, came in placed in 2 Grade 2s, including the Santa Anita Oaks on April 5th. Interesting listening to a couple of handicappers from the other side of the nation talk about Tenma and some of the other horses. They say, the thing is, if it's a Baffert horse, it's probably only run at Santa Anita, at Del Mar, and you have to find films and go back and look at the highlight films, as opposed to, you go over there and horses are running in Keeneland, horses run at Churchill, horses run at Aqueduct and Pimlico. So they said it's much easier to see some of these other horses, easier, if you will, because they travel around. But Baffert tends to not only isolate his horses to the West Coast, but then he's also racing them against other horses under his tutelage. And therefore, what's the competition really? So kind of an interesting take on it. The last horse for the Oaks for me is Take Charge Milady. Kenneth McPeak is the trainer. Brian J. Hernandez Jr. is the jockey. Take Charge Milady, little inconsistent, but not really that inconsistent. Has had some good success this year, and don't be surprised you also see that horse making it a race.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I like Lakara a lot, and I think the reason is I think she's probably gonna get good value here. I mean, I would like to see her at 4, 5, maybe even 6-1. That would be great. I do expect Quiet Side to be the morning line favorite. And like you, Tenma is one horse that sometimes, I don't know, I get you come out here to the West Coast, and when we talk, we do focus heavily, especially in the summer when we get rolling into Del Mar, Santa Anita, kind of those West Coast stuff. And maybe for us, or at least for me, I think, oh, okay, this horse is dominant on the West Coast. They're going to go to the East Coast, everything. And then they come out and they're 12-1. And you just kind of shake your head and you're like, okay, wow, that East Coast bias, I guess, is there. And, sometimes they're right. But Tenma, I think, is a horse that I mean, looking at it here, the fact that they have the horse, I think it finished 6th in the points. So I don't know if they're ranking them just the way they want or the point side of things. But I expect Tenma to also be a somewhat short number, and I'd love to take advantage of that. 2 other horses that I have my eye on just for the pedigree side of it. And it's Ballerina de Oro. Now, look, if you know anything a whole lot about kind of the names and the lineage of things, de Oros are, they're kind of like the Tiz's, if you will, the Tiz Nows and the stuff like that. And then the other is a horse I believe half sister, not quite sure. I don't have both of their pedigrees right here in front of me, but Anna's Promise, coming from that bloodline as well. Very interesting to see. But Anna's Promise, I think, is going to be a heavy long shot if we do see her run in this one. But Luis Saez aboard, so that might be worth a look. Again, I do believe we have Raider Jim, you probably know better than me. I would assume post positions on Monday for both of these races.
They're drawing for post on Saturday.
That's even better. Fantastic. Saturday it is. And that's great news for us because hopefully, and this will be a quick reminder for everyone, especially as we get deeper into the year. We are going to have to record these on Thursday because that's when Daily Racing Form kind of puts all those nice, easy cheat sheets right there in front of us. And when a lot of these races are running on Saturday, it's going to be a little difficult to get these out in a timely manner, and we will. But for you, make sure you go on YouTube. You probably already subscribed. Make sure you hit that little bell button. Make sure you get notified when a new episode does come out. So right when it comes out, you can listen to it. Because again, unfortunately, not a whole lot of time, but we're having post positions drawn on Saturday. I expect Daily Racing Form will probably have something for us by Monday or Tuesday. So hopefully we'll get that out very early for you to get some Oaks and Derby picks and thoughts in. But anyways, that is definitely something to keep in mind as these post positions are going to be very important, I do believe, for a lot of these. These 3-year-olds are essentially, I kind of call them like college horses. They're at they're 2-year-olds are the high schoolers, 3-year-olds are the college kids. This is when you can really start making some money, which actually makes a lot more sense now. But anyways, before you, of course, graduate to the 4-year-olds, which then you can pretty much run against anybody. But very interesting to see how this Oaks race is going to go. And we'll probably also have a better idea of the weather as well, because that has been something to keep in mind the past few years. But switching our early attention, of course, to the Saturday main event, and it is the Kentucky Derby, the Run for the Roses, the fastest 2 minutes in sports. Whatever moniker you want to put on it, it is the Kentucky Derby. Just running through some of the these are some of the contenders per Horse Racing Nation. Not really in the order of points, but I'll just go through the top 5. Definitely the 5 that I have my eye on, a couple with some others, but the top one in terms of the rating is going to be Journalism. Probably going to be your morning line favorite if we expect, or if you kind of understand all this stuff. Michael McCarthy and Umberto Rispoli will be getting a hold of Journalism. On Tappan Street, Brad Cox and Luis Saez. Then we have Burnham Square running. We got Wilkes and Brian Hernandez Jr. Mark Cassie's Sandman, another horse I have my eye on. And Jose Ortiz, Sovereignty, William Mott, and Franco. And then Tastic, kind of one of those Tizzes I talked about, Steve Asmussen and Joel Rosario. Among plenty others, of course. We will know a lot more next week when we get our 23. We'll have our 20 entries and then our 3 or 4 also eligibles. But I have to imagine those 6 horses plus some others are definitely going to be in that race and running if everything goes well. Raider Jim, your thoughts, your early thoughts on the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I always like looking at a field of 20 plus horses. It makes it so easy to pick a winner, doesn't it? Just, for the sake of discussion or the sake of providing information, Burnham Square, the point leader going into the week, 130 points, Sandman 129, Journalism 122 and a half, Rodriguez 121.25, Tastic at 119. Then you start dropping down into the 110 range and lower. But all those very familiar names, because you just spoke about some of them. I have Journalism down at the top of my list. Michael McCarthy and Umberto Rispoli, 5 for 5 in the money. The last 4 went to the winner's circle, and that included the Grade 2 Felipe Stakes and the Santa Anita Derby. Quite a nice race they ran over here at Santa Anita. It's got Sandman after that. Sandman out of Tapit. Mark Cassie and Jose Ortiz is going to be the jockey on that. And again, Randy won the Arkansas Derby. 6 entries after breaking the maiden. The big win was that Grade 1 Arkansas Derby not that long ago. And then we have Tastic. Tastic out of Tis the Law and Keisha's the Mama. Keisha the Mama is by Tapit. That's a heck of a bloodline you got in that horse. Now, the other thing about this horse will be ridden by Joel Rosario. Steve Asmussen's the trainer, still looking for his first Kentucky Derby winning race. We'll see what happens with Tastic and if it represents one that's out there that some people are kind of saying, no, probably not, but you got to take a look. Citizen Bull, Bob Baffert, Martin Garcia. Now, Citizen Bull had a fantastic 2024, has only gone 1 for 2 in 2025, went to the winner's circle in the Grade 3 Robert B. Lewis Stakes here at Santa Anita, but ran in the Santa Anita Derby, came in 4th in a field of 5, lost to Westwood, Baez, who's also going to be running in the Derby, and Journalism. So for going against 2 competitors for sure that are going to be in this field and coming in 4th on basically your home field, not too good. Why would you not overlook this horse? You don't want to overlook this horse because has 2 Grade 1 wins in 2024, the American Pharoah Stakes in October, and more importantly, the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile in November. If you won that race, if you won those 2 races, you're not a slouch. And Baffert has that way of bringing the winners back into the winning circle. So no pun intended. Let's see what happens with Citizens Bull. I'd keep an eye on it.
Yeah, that's actually where I was going to start. I'm very intrigued to see, again, not only how this horse runs, but what number it runs at, because I think there's a chance you could see this horse maybe go off at double digits to 1. The Baffert name might kind of just bring money in already, but I mean, even 8 to 1 would be interesting. And I'm glad you brought that up because I do think a lot of people do look at and go, oh my goodness, he finished 4th in the Santa Anita Derby out of 5 horses. And then you look at the field and look, behind Westwood, that's not great. But the other 2 horses to lose to, again, not ideal, but Journalism, that's probably going to go off as the morning line favorite. Right. And Baeza, who's probably going to be one of those 25, 35 to 1s. So, I feel like Citizens Bull's kind of like right in the middle of those 2 in terms of expectations. So yeah, I can understand why people maybe are writing that horse off. But as you mentioned, this is the reigning juvenile champ. And that is sometimes the way you look at things. Oh, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in November? What are they doing in May? Because more than likely, that horse is going to be on track to run. And for it to kind of be listed, 8, 9, 10, 12, wherever you're looking in terms of the contender list, that's interesting. Another horse that I remember really from last year and has had a really tough start to the year is Chancer McPatrick. This is Flavian Pratt and Chad Brown.
I am just looking at that horse.
Yeah,
I am looking at the profile.
It's very similar to Citizen Bull. Now, didn't have as great of a 2024 as Citizen Bull did, but Chancer McPatrick, look, ran in the Bluegrass, which is a Grade 1, finished 7th out of 7 horses. But let's see, 5 of these horses, 5 of the 6 that beat this horse are either running in the Derby, the Pat Day Mile, or in River Thames case, already looking at the Preakness. So essentially, 5 of the 6 horses this horse lost to are going to be running either on Triple Crown cards or in the Triple Crown. And I think Chancer McPatrick, 3-year-olds, sometimes you just don't know. I go back to Art Collector. I want to say it was Art Collector. It felt like Art Collector would put up a 120 and then come back with a 74. And you just kind of had to ride that wave. And I'm not saying that's the case with Chancer McPatrick, but I really think here a little bit, maybe further down the tote board. Again, I don't know if you're going to cash a winner, but you could find a play show pick with some of these horses. And who knows, in 6 months, more than likely, whoever wins this race, and if they continue to have a good summer, they're probably running in the Classic, or they're probably running on, maybe the mile, but they're probably running in the Breeders' Cup. And it could kind of be one of those things like, oh yeah, Chancellor McPatrick, 5-1 in the Classic. Well, I had him, whatever, 10-1 in the Derby. And then you feel, kind of big brain, but we'll see. It is very early, but I was very interested and very kind of, the Rock raising his eyebrow, like, huh, okay, you guys are putting them down a little bit. All right. And I get it. I understand why. I'm not, blind to what is going on. But again, these aren't optional claiming races they're losing in. And in a field of 20, sometimes you just got to be at the right place at the right time. So,
And I think it's too early to figure out the forecast. You can probably, an extended forecast, but by this time next week, I know we'll have a good idea of what's going to be happening with the weather. I know last year it was that sloppy mess.
yeah,
And that always makes for an interesting run because you don't know what's going to happen.
amen. Yeah, and that might have been the one I was thinking of because I think we only ran 18 or 17 because I think multiple horses scratched and the also eligibles were like, nah, we'll see at Pimlico possibly. But yeah, so we shall see. But yeah, and another reminder, I do expect this one hopefully to come out Wednesday or Thursday next week. Myself and Raider Jim will get together on that, but we'll also need daily racing form to come through, but they're really good on the Triple Crown side of things. So Raider Jim, final thoughts as we wrap up our kind of dip in the original Call to Post pool.
Fantastic to be back talking about horses. I know for both of us, I think we share an equal love for the sport, and whether it's good or bad news, we're always going to talk about it. And I can't wait for Derby week. It's going to be a lot of fun, and can't wait to see some of the hats and all the coverage that NBC provides. It's always nothing but class act.
Amen. Yeah, as a former bartender, I always like to see the bartenders doing their thing with the mint juleps and stuff like that. Even though I will say mint is the worst garnish in the world as a bartender. Ugh, don't order mojitos, folks. Anyways, um, just very difficult. Anyways, but no, just one thing that I did see today. I have a couple thoughts. And I don't know the full extent of things, but Elijah Arenas, son of Gilbert Arenas, he's a 5-star recruit. I believe he's number 1, depending on where you look, committed to USC. Unfortunately, early this morning, there was a car accident. There was a Tesla Cybertruck. He unfortunately has been placed into a medically induced coma. So again, there's nothing really else out there other than that, thoughts and prayers going over there. I truly hope that family is whole very soon, but medically induced comas, unfortunately, I had to deal with it in my family. It is a very tough thing to deal with, and I couldn't imagine it for a 17 or 18-year-old. So, from us to everyone affected, thoughts and prayers, and we hope to see Elijah up and back, not even basketball, forget about all that, just up and living life very, very soon. Just wanted to kind of bring that up before we did kind of close things down. A couple other things, obviously, this is the obligatory, don't rush it or it's going to go by very quick. It seems like, when we do our NFL preview week 1 or whatever, we always say, okay, we're looking at the forest right now, how daunting it is. Well, eventually we're going to get to the end of it. And eventually we're going to be sitting here in November. And as much as I want to get to the Breeders' Cup and as great as that weekend is, there's a lot in front of us. Obviously a great summer, but also a lot of racing. So enjoy it. And make sure you tune in. We're going to be with you hopefully every week. And finally, time to get a little sappy. I do want to thank my co-host, Raider Jim, as always, for everything he does for the podcast and for me as we kind of get ready to dive into a new year. Horse racing is, I learned a lot from Raider Jim and everything we do, but I haven't learned nearly as much from him in any other sport that I have from horse racing. I wouldn't be doing a podcast about horse racing if it wasn't for Raider Jim. So I want to thank him not only for everything he does, but especially the horse racing side of things. Very, very thankful for him to be here. And I know you all are as well. But
This gray hair isn't just for the show.
no, it's the
There's a lot of experience in this gray hair.
Amen.
There are a lot of thrown down race tickets because of this gray hair.
Amen. Yes. But you know what? I wouldn't rather learn from anyone else. So
Thank you.
very, very blessed to have you in my life. But I'm very blessed to have all of you listening as well in our lives. Make sure you join us again next week as we dive in kind of the real nuts and bolts, dive into the deep end. We're getting rid of the floaties, got some actual hard data to deal with next week. So make sure you tune in. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the original Call to Post here on the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.